Yo guys, what is going on? Insanity coming back at you today with another weekly vendor reset for the Division. This week it's for the date of June 23rd, 2017. Starting out like we normally do, we're going to head on down to the Special Blueprints vendor down in the terminal of the base of operations. The two weapons that you're going to be able to find this week if you haven't already purchased them is the MG5 blueprint and the model M700 blueprint. Both of those are pretty decent weapons, especially the M700 if you haven't found a nice tactical to go ahead and try and take on legendary missions. Pick up that blueprint and try and craft the best one you possibly can. Right across the room before you make your way out of the terminal, stop at the special equipment vendor, take a look at the Pecan, 14% damage to target out of cover. Self-preserved and prepared is rolled on this Pecan, so if you've been looking for a pretty decent roll, this is one that I would recommend picking up, especially for the damage to target out of cover being almost at max roll. Next thing from this vendor that I would recommend picking up is a resourceful backpack. This thing is rolled with 1264 stamina, 1298 armor, and it does have 8% critical hit damage. The minor I would recommend rolling for something else because you could always just use something like Pharaoh's Mask to deal with fire. The last thing from this vendor I would recommend picking up is the Gunslinger Gloves with 985 armor, 1256 firearms, and their Savage Gloves with skill haste, critical hit damage, and marksman rifle damage. This is definitely one of my picks of the week. Is it the ultimate pick of the week? No, we're saving that one for a little bit further down the line. Our next stop is going to be over at the Wolves Den Safe House. Over at this vendor, you're going to be able to pick up a certain SMG that I would consider perhaps one of my all-time favorites for this game for all types of build, and that would be the PP19. You can pick it up with 21.5% critical hit chance, responsive, dominant, and hurried. So if you're still looking for something decent to go with a shield build or a nice little backup weapon to go ahead and use whenever you're in last stand to mix up that 1-2 punch build with an assault rifle and an SMG, pick that little guy up today. Our next stop is going to be over at the hub at Camp Hudson, where you start out the game whenever you get to Manhattan for the very first time. Over at the weapons vendor, you can find a military AK-47 with 22% enemy armor damage. Dominant, adept, and ferocious is in the freebie slot, which we all know can be a pain in the butt sometimes to try and have on your character based on your electronics. So definitely go ahead and throw this thing on there in your arsenal to make sure you have a pretty decent AK-47 with really high enemy armor damage at your disposal. Our next stop is going to be taking us to the first checkpoint over in the DZ. At the East 61st Street checkpoint, you're going to be able to find a holo site. We actually haven't had a site listed on one of my vendor resets in quite a while, but this is a shout out to Jimmy because I didn't put his particular site over in my vendor reset last week. So this is for you. Where's my scope? It's a holo site with critical hit chance, critical hit damage, and headshot damage. So if you are needing a little bit of an extra buff in DPS, I would highly recommend picking this little guy up before it's gone in the next 7 days. Next is going to be down at the East 46th Street checkpoint, and here you're going to find a God Rolled Support Station range mod at 7.5% for those of you out there trying to make sure you have the most ultimate range on your Reclaimer build to make sure everybody within maximum distance are going to be able to be healed by your little station there. Our next stop is going to be taking us on over to the East 42nd Street checkpoint, where here you can go ahead and pick up a 265 stamina mod that's also rolled with health. This is the only mod pretty much this entire week that has a pretty high roll above 260. So if you're looking to have a little bit of an increase in your survivability and toughness, then this is something that I would recommend adding to your inventory before the week is up. Next on the list is going to be over at the 5th Avenue, the farthest south checkpoint that you can hit up. Yes, I did have a glitch when I was doing this entire vendor reset here. Over at this checkpoint, the table wasn't loading and the walls aren't existing. It's crazy looking. But item of the week, the M700 Tactical with 170 headshot damage, destructive, deadly, and elevated. I would recommend picking up 2 of these if you have the DZ funds to support that type of purchase. One to go ahead and keep the way it is, and a second one to tinker with. Take elevated away and maybe throw something on there like brutal or something that's going to give you even more headshot damage as a whole. Put this together with a different type of build to get the maximum amount of DPS that you could possibly get from this and use it in legendary missions and things like that. And like I was saying before, this entire thing was glitching out on me, so you can see through walls, through doors as if they were never existing. The next stop on our little adventure around the DZ is going to take us to West 31st Street, and here you can find a 3.5% Seeker Mine damage mod. This little guy is definitely another little mod that I would recommend for those who are trying to get more damage out of their Seekers. Yes, things are going to be changing in the PTS, so I'd recommend to get as much damage as you possibly can. Next stop, over at the West 34th Street safe house, you can get a max rolled 2% pulse critical hit damage mod if you're trying to get some extra DPS for you and your teammates. It always helps out for those who are running pulse. And our very last stop is going to be all the way in DZ9, in the DZ9 safe house. It's the firehouse one, where you're actually going to need to go ahead and head on upstairs. Depending on what entrance you come in through, you may already be up there, or if you come in through the bottom, head through the stairs in the back. And over at the Dark Zone Special Vendor, you can find some Deadeye Gloves that have some really, really decent armor, 1265 stamina, critical hit chance, critical hit damage, and marksman rifle damage. Anyways, guys, it's going to go ahead and wrap things up for this week's vendor reset. Be sure to go ahead and drop a like if you haven't already, sub if you're brand new for more Division content, and of course, be sure to go ahead and turn on your mobile notifications so you know the moment content like this goes live, or whenever I go live here on YouTube Gaming. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Have a good one.